So, Hare Krishna, welcome. Today we are going to continue the second chapter and the verses we are going to cover today 2.61 to 2.66. Extremely profound set of verses. And they have a message to convey, and we have to study them together. And that's the reason today we took the chanting a little earlier so that we get to spend more time on the verses. So, before I begin, I'll say the prayers to Guru and God. ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाके चक्षुरुमिलितमेन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः. ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. हरे कृष्ण.
गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुर्साक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः. तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः. तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः.
Hare Krishna. So I hope you all have the shlokas in front of you. So I'll play the shlokas starting from 2.61.
तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य युक्त आसीत मत्परः वशे हि यस्येन्द्रियाणि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषूपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति रागद्वेषविमुक्तैस्तु विषयानिन्द्रियैश्चरन् आत्मवश्यैर्विधेयात्मा प्रसादमधिगच्छति प्रसादे सर्वदुःखानां हानिरस्योपजायते प्रसन्नचेतसो ह्याशु बुद्धिः पर्यवतिष्ठते नास्ति बुद्धिरयुक्तस्य न चायुक्तस्य भावना न चाभावयतः शान्तिरशान्तस्य कुतः सुखम्.
Okay. Powerful set of shlokas. You will see what I mean when we start explaining them. So this is pretty much a journey through the psychology of liberation. So Krishna is going to go very deep into human psychology and what makes us fall down and how to overcome that and all of that. So let us start. So in 2.61, Krishna says, so that is the shloka that starts with Tani Sarvani Sayyamya Yukta Asita Matparaha. So he says, those who control their senses and remain engaged, focused on me, indeed, they are established in wisdom. I hope you all remember previously we studied a shloka where Krishna explained how the senses are very turbulent and they have the power to forcibly carry away even a person of wisdom. That's what we studied earlier. The senses are called as Indriya. So Indriyanam is what you will see the usage. And I want to share something interesting is traditionally this word is attributed to Lord Indra. Indra, Indriyanam. It's kind of a hint. What is the hint we get? Like Indra means he's the god of heavens, the Lord of heavens, right? And as you know, he has that attitude of being the Lord. So what is the hint when we attribute Indriyas to Indra? The hint is that each Indriya, like each sense that we have, they behave as if they are a Lord. They are our Lord. The eyes, they're always craving for beautiful images. The tongue always wants you to give it something tasty. The ears always want some music, so on and so forth. Now they all behave like they're all rulers. They rule, they demand, and we provide. Isn't it so? And they compete, they bargain, they rebel, and they demand. They demand that you satisfy them. And all our lives, are we not serving them? So that is a hint. And then you have to ask yourself, is that how it is supposed to be? I mean, tell me something. Will you say that your eyes belong to you, or will you say that you belong to your eyes? Now, there we are very clear. We say the eyes belong to me, the ears belong to me. But look at how we live. We live as if we belong to them because they are the ones making all the demands and we are the ones, trying to fulfill. And that's the hint for us. So this is where in Katha Upanishad, Sloka 1.3.3 and 1.3.4, the hierarchy is given, where it says that know that the self is the rider of the chariot. The body is the chariot itself. The intellect is the charioteer. The mind is the reins. And the senses, they say, are the horses. And the objects of the senses are the paths in which those horses run. Now, we all know this. We all know that if the horses are running wild, let us say there is no control. There are 5 horses, powerful horses, pulling your chariot, but there is no control. Each one of them can run wherever they want, whenever they want. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? Of course, it's very straightforward. The outcome is straightforward. The chariot is going to topple. You're going to have a crash. But if those same horses are trained, if those same horses are being controlled by a skillful charioteer, then those horses can quickly take you to the destination that you have to go, that you want to go. That is where Krishna says, Yukta asita matparaha. It's a very revolutionary insight. Krishna is not just saying control, he's not just saying restrain, he's saying redirect. If you see the words used, they sit, asita, in a state of union, yukta, with consciousness absorbed in the divine, matparaha. So what Krishna is asking us is not to become empty, but to become full. Krishna is not asking us to always engage in negation. Krishna is talking about supreme affirmation. Bear with me, just pay attention, try to follow what we are saying because we will explain them more. But right now, it will be good to know exactly what Krishna is saying in at least starting with 2.61. See, the concept is very simple. Have you all seen, I don't know, because these days it's very rare to see any animals other than, dogs and cats. But, if you had the good fortune of ever seeing an elephant, especially in villages, you will see that the villagers or whoever is, controlling the elephant, they will always give a stick or something for the elephant to hold. Because what happens, the elephant, the trunk is never stable. The trunk is never quiet. The elephant always wants to, go somewhere. The trunk wants to touch something, hold something, throw something. So they will give a piece of wood or something for the elephant to hold in its trunk, and then it will walk quietly. So the mind is like that. This is Krishna's psychology. Krishna says that the mind is like that. The mind has to focus on something. The question is, what are we making the mind focus on? Are we going to make it focus on Sat, or are we going to make it focus on Asat? Is the whole, equation here. So that is why the word yukta is important. It means united or yoked. So it suggests harmony, integration. It is not, so we are not saying, unity through force. We are talking about unity through harmony. And it's a very, very beautiful concept here. So if alignment of the mind happens in such a way means nobody is beating the mind to submit. No, nobody is asking us to use violence. Nobody is asking us to force and somehow control the mind. That's not the point here. The point is we have to direct the mind in a very harmonious way. And if we do that, then Krishna says, Tasya pragya pratishtita. Pragya is consciousness or wisdom, and it becomes pratishtita, firmly established, steady, unshakable. So this is one of the ways how we become a Sthita Pragya. So when Krishna says our goal is to become a Sthita Pragya, it is not like, put somebody under pressure, force them, use violence to control their mind. You will never become a Sthita Pragya like that. You will at the most become a mental case. So Krishna is now going to teach us in detail how to take care of this wild mind and channelize it in such a way that you can become a Sthita Pragya. And once you achieve that, you pretty much understood how to get liberation. So Krishna is now adding, so what Krishna said when he said Sthita Pragya? Sthita Pragya means Krishna said you have to still the mind, calm the mind, correct? But then he is adding the crucial element. He's saying that stilling or that calming should not happen through force, but rather it should happen harmoniously by absorbing yourself in the divine. So beautiful. So you see, there is a term used in 2.61, samyamya. Now it comes from the root yam. Yam means to hold, to regulate. And some of you are practicing yoga. So you know that in yoga, yama, everything begins there, right? Yama, niyama, pratyahara. Then everything comes after that. So that is the root yam used there. It is not suppressing by force, but it is harnessing. So it is like, have you seen any orchestra? Any of you have seen live orchestra, like great conductors like Yanni and all? You'll see that there is this one conductor standing in a center of a stadium, and there are like a few dozen musicians and dozens of instruments. Does this person have a whip in their hand, or do they have a gun in their hand where they're pointing at the musicians to say that you have to play what I ask? No, right? They know how to harmoniously unite all of them together so that you get a beautiful music, beautiful orchestra. That is the method Krishna is teaching us on how to harmonize these wild senses and make them do what you want them to do to eventually take you towards liberation. Isn't that empowering? Isn't that a very beautiful way to achieve our goals? So again, Krishna is not talking about Nirodha, which is negation alone. He's talking about transformation. So some, Mahatmas or some saints have said that the path that is, whenever we say Krishna consciousness, whenever we say we have to walk the path of, being in Krishna consciousness, some Mahatmas have said that that path is not about Jodna. Jodna means you keep leaving, you keep giving away, it's negation. They say it is not that, whereas it is the path of Jodna. Jodna means you are connecting, you are adding, you are substituting. That is the path. Making sense, right? That is what Krishna is talking about. Like what happens if, let us say you have a field, you are a farmer, you have a field and you have a crop growing and it needs a lot of water. Now, there is a river flowing nearby, very powerful river flowing nearby. Are you going to go and try to force the river to say you have to flow only through my farm? And nobody does that because people know it doesn't work. Instead, what do? They try to dig some canals. No? They try to dig some pathways through which the water can now, some water can come, it can come through your fields, it can water your crops, and then it can go back and join the river and so on and so forth. What we're trying to say, we don't use force, we don't use opposition, we are not trying to stop the river. We cannot. but we can help align its flow in such a way that it helps you. That is the message here. So that is what we say, sense control through service to God. So we cannot force our senses. We cannot try to just stop our senses, just like we cannot try to stop a mighty river, but we can channelize. And that is the message, and that is what Krishna is explaining now in detail. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, there is a story of King Ambarish, and he managed to control all his senses using this method that Krishna is teaching. So you can take down the shlokas, and whenever you get time, you can read it yourself. So it is Srimad Bhagavatam 9.4.18, and I think it goes up to 9.4.20. So there are 3 shlokas there. And as I said previously, there is a site, Veda Base. There you can read the Srimad Bhagavatam online. Let us see what those shlokas say. I will just make it quick and concise here. So it says that Maharaj Ambarish, he always engaged his mind in meditating upon the lotus feet of Krishna. His words, he engaged them in describing the glories of the Lord. He engaged his hands in cleaning the God's temple. He engaged his ears in hearing the words spoken by Krishna or about Krishna. He is engaging his eyes in seeing the deity. He is engaging his senses of taste in tasting food offered to Krishna, prasadam. He is using his legs to walk to the holy places. And he's using his head to offer obeisance to the Lord. Are you getting the gist of it now? Like what we just discussed earlier. Is he saying my legs should do nothing, or is he saying my hands will do nothing, or my eyes will not see anything? That becomes negation. But he's channelizing, he's transforming. And all his desires were engaged in the service of the Lord. His senses were thus completely in the service of the Lord, and because of that, his senses had no power over him. That is why he was never disturbed by his senses. And that is why King Ambarisha was the highest kind of Sthita Pragya. And this is how he achieved that state. So now Krishna has been talking about the aspects as a friend. So far, what we have discussed, they sound a little comforting, right? Because we said you don't have to force, and we said that you can channelize, harmonize, all nice words. And it all felt warm and fuzzy. So, like a very friendly message. And now he's making a transition. Now he's making a transition to a cosmic psychologist, master psychologist. Because Krishna knows that, if you remember, what is Arjuna's condition? He's having a mental diarrhea. He's like kind of, his eyes are not seeing clearly, his hands are shaking. It's totally like a mess. But Krishna knows that what is happened to Arjuna is not just some random accident. Instead, it is a result of a specific psychological sequence. This is why this set of slokas are so important, because here Krishna is going to explain those specific sequence, which will apply not just to Arjuna, but it applies to each one of us. So in verses 2.62 and 63, he's mapping out the terrifyingly precise algorithm on how a human being disintegrates. So it's a warning for us, and at the same time, it is a very powerful and empowering lesson for us. He's explaining exactly how it happened so that we can understand and we can overcome. So look at Sloka 2.62. There Krishna will say, Dhyayato Vishayan Punsah Sangasteshu Pajayate Sangat Sanjayate Kamah Kamat Krodho Bijayate. Powerful lesson here. He says, when we contemplate on the objects of senses, a person develops attachment to them. And from such attachment, lust arises. And from lust, anger is born. See the sequence. very clear. And then he goes on in 2.63, he says, Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammohat smritibi vibramah, smriti branchad buddhi nasho, buddhi nashat pranashyati. I mean, in 2 shlokas, he has packed that algorithm for us. So we just saw that from lust, anger is born, and then he continues. He says, from that anger, the judgment gets clouded. Has anybody watched The Godfather? One of the most iconic movies, I don't know how many of you remember the scene, but I think it is Godfather Part 2 or Part 3, where Al Pacino is trying to coach his hot-headed young nephew. And the young guy is always in a hurry, like he just wants to shoot somebody, So, so there are 2 things that Al Pacino tells him. First thing he says is, you can be smart because you know how to pull the trigger. He says, but the real wise man knows when to pull the trigger. He says it's a very subtle distinction. But the second thing he says is equally profound. He says, never hate your enemy because that clouds your judgment. See, even in a movie like Godfather, which is all about gangs and all, even there you can find these pearls of wisdom. That's exactly what Krishna is saying here. Krishna says that lust has given room to anger, and anger will cloud your judgment. And what happens when the judgment gets clouded? You become delusional. Delusional means partly your memory. Your memory gets impacted. And when your memory is impacted, your intellect gets destroyed. What use is the intellect if there is no memory? It is like, you have a great computer program, but there is no database. It cannot store anything. There is not much it can do. And Krishna says, once the intellect is destroyed, game over. Congratulations, you have managed to destroy yourself. So Krishna is giving us the precise sequence on how we can end our own game. Isn't it terrifying? And Krishna is not saying these are opinions. Krishna is not saying, in my humble opinion. Krishna is saying this is exactly how it works. Now, one thing you can see the use of the word lust here. That's why I want to quickly expand upon it. Pretty much love plus selfish attachment, when these 2 come together, that is what becomes lust. So there is a misunderstanding a lot of us have. We think lust only means sexual attraction. That is not true. Any sensory attachment, if it becomes so strong, if you start feeling that, I cannot do without it, then you can call that as lust. Lust is pretty much any kind of attachment which is selfish, selfish attachment, because that has a lot of expectations. All the problems, they originate from there. And Krishna is saying how the law of the mind works is, such attachment will lead to lust. And unfulfilled lust will lead to anger. I don't know if some of you are already catching the gist of it, because in the previous sessions we already discussed how you can never fulfill desire. Because the moment you try to fulfill, the desire becomes bigger. And here Krishna is saying unfulfilled lust will lead to anger. And he has already told us that you can never fulfill lust. So logically, what does it tell us? Lust will lead to anger. Guaranteed. Whenever there is lust, anger has to follow. So powerful lessons Krishna is saying. So Krishna is now talking about what are all the perils to avoid, because the outcome is perilous. So his formula, let us see. He's giving us a very objective formula. He starts by saying that, where does it all start? You think about sensory objects. And this is also called as contemplating. You contemplate on a sensory object. That leads to attachment. Like you see a beautiful face, you see something like that. And, that will lead to attachment. And when that attachment grows stronger, that leads to lust. As we just explained what lust is. And we also just saw that that lust leads to anger. And from anger, delusion. From delusion, loss of memory. A damaged memory impacts your intelligence. And when intelligence is corrupted, that's it. The only thing that makes us human is our buddhi. The only thing that differentiates us from any other life form is our ability, our intellect ability to analyze, viveka. If that is gone, then we are not human anymore, right? Okay, so because it is so powerful and because it applies to each one of us, I would like to take some time to dive deep into each part of it. So the first part, where did it all start? The spark, the contemplation, dhyayato vishayan. Some of you who are very perceptive would have already figured, you would have already observed that our fall does not begin by action. Our fall begins with intention. The start of our downfall is an intention. And that comes with attention to the wrong thing. Dhyayato means dhyana is meditation, which pretty much means you are focusing on some, and dhyayato is coming from that. Krishna is very careful with his choice of words because Krishna is not saying that the problem starts by seeing. Krishna says the problem starts by contemplating. What is the difference? Every day we are walking or we are driving or whatever, every day we come across millions of things. We come across hundreds of people. Do we feel attachment to all of them? Do we feel attracted to all of them? Fortunately, we don't have the capacity, right? We cannot. So who is it or what is it that we get attached to? It is those people or those objects about which we think, is it not? To see how methodical Krishna's approach is. So Krishna is saying, not just see, it's an intent. The intent says, beautiful flower. You don't stop there. I wish I could smell it. You don't stop there. I wish I could have it. You see where the problem is. Now you are contemplation, in the mode of contemplation. So that is why Krishna is using that word very carefully. So the intent, the attention, the contemplation is the beginning. So whenever your mind stops and lingers, whenever it is lingering somewhere, you should know that the problem is beginning to brew. The seed has been planted. That is the beginning. So technically, if you want to see in Vedanta, they will say that this is the beginning of the formation of sanskara. We discussed about sanskara in the past. Anybody remembers what is sanskara? Did we study that? Yes, thoda. Okay, Ekash.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, sanskara is all the things or actions we keep on doing every day. Just cumulative sanskara. It's like, for example, I give on to my drinking habit. If I'm drinking today, next it will be more powerful that I want to drink. It's like I've developed sanskara.
Exactly. That's awesome. Very happy you remembered. Thank you. Ekash already explained the mechanism of how things work. So sanskara is pretty much an impression that is formed. Like people who are studying artificial intelligence today, they will see these words used, neural pathways and all of that, but that is pretty much how our own mind and brain works. Neural pathways are created, and those pathways are created based on our thoughts, based on our actions. And the more you think, the more you act, those pathways become stronger, and the stronger those pathways become, they make you do the same acts again and again. So it's a vicious cycle. So Krishna is not explaining, he's teaching us the root of this. He's teaching us at which point does the sanskara take birth. He says, it is that point where our mind lingers on something, something that the senses have come in contact with. So the second step, that is the first stage. The second stage is the glue. The glue is attachment, sangha. So he's saying repeated contemplation, it makes that pathway deeper. It makes that sanskara deeper. The sanskara becomes deeper means it also becomes stronger. And when the sanskara becomes stronger, just like Ekansh said, if you give in to something today, the urge to give in becomes stronger tomorrow. See, it only keeps getting stronger and stronger. And this repetition creates sangha, attachment. So sangha literally means sticking or clinging. It also means association. And beautifully, the explanation is that is when the distance between the subject and the object collapses. We begin to feel like our happiness now depends on that object. I need that to be complete. I don't feel complete without that. Have you not heard people say this? And this is the beginning of all addiction, all unhealthy obsession. The start is always very innocent. The start is like just a glance. I'm sure a lot of you have watched Bollywood movies. Sometimes it happens in Hollywood, but Bollywood perfected this whole thing, right? Now, there is this man, who will just glimpse at a woman and something happens in his mind, And does the mind stop there? No, now he starts thinking about that woman. And then by the time he's going home, he cannot think of anything else. Isn't it? And then you hear those dialogues, "मैं उसके बिना जी नहीं सकता." Like, I cannot live without her. Jabki, all these years he has lived perfectly fine without her. But now suddenly it is like, I cannot live without that woman, So this is what Krishna is saying. He's saying, my dear, first, the seed has already been sown because your mind lingered. It's not like he saw a woman and then he saw something else. He saw a woman and then his mind started contemplating. And all the problems started there. Even in our movies, the same thing happens. Once he reaches this state, I cannot live without her. If you see from that point, there is only destruction after that. He will become mad, crazy, and then he will create problems for himself, for her, for the family. Only drama after that. And that is exactly what Krishna is trying to explain here. So first, contemplation, dhyayato, vishayan. Second, sangha, the attachment. The third is the fire, kama, lust. And Krishna is saying that attachment is now giving rise to lust. But we make a mistake because in many of those movies, they call that as pyar. They call that as love, but that's not really love. Because love pretty much means you just want somebody to be happy. For that person doesn't have to live in your home. That person can live wherever they are and you can still wish them happiness. That is love. But the moment you now have attachments, selfish attachments, that person, I have to touch the person, that person has to touch me, I have to smile, that person has to smile back at me, I have to say nice things, that person also has to reciprocate. Now all of the drama starts happening. And that is lust now. Kama, we have now entered the realm of danger. Kama. Because what did we just learn? Lust can never be satisfied. Never. That is why what happens, usually what people think is love at first sight usually turns into obsession. And once things get into obsession mode, there is always trouble after that. So what happens after this kama phase, stage 4 comes the explosion. So we added fire now. So we created the raw materials in 1 and 2. And then in stage 3, we added fire to it. And stage 4 is the explosion now. Explosion is krodha. Now Krishna has brilliant insight. Krishna says, see, this is so brilliant, master stroke. Krishna says, my dear, kama and krodha, they are not two different emotions. He says they are the same energy going into different directions. Because whenever the lust finds obstacles, whenever what you are really craving for, you feel it is not attainable. For example, you are really lusting for somebody and that person is not reciprocating. That's it. All hell breaks loose. How dare, you know? That is when the explosion happens. Krodha. Isn't it not true? See, if you look at, I'm giving a probably a serious, but even a simple, you can take a silly example. Like uh, you are probably late to work. You want to reach office in a timely manner. You start your car, you are driving, and you are really worried whether you're going to reach in time. And then somebody just cuts you, you know. They cut you from the left or cut you from the right and they obstruct your path. Then what happens after that? Explosion. That is what is called as road rage, isn't it? Why did it happen? If you now actually dissect it very scientifically, methodically, the way Krishna has taught us, that is because that was also an attachment you had, an attachment to be somewhere at a particular time, and there was an obstruction in the way that prevented you from realizing what you were attached to, and that gave rise to Krodha. So this mechanism you can see in your day-to-day lives. Whenever you catch yourself becoming angry, if you are able to analyze it scientifically, you will see that this never fails. You know, you can always trace it back to stage 1, 2, and 3. That has already happened. Now, what happens after that? After the Krodha? Stage 5. So, fire. After fire, explosion. What usually happens after explosion? Have you seen any explosion? Lot of dust and smoke, right? When there is a lot of dust and smoke, you cannot see clearly. That is delusion. That pretty much is delusion. Krishna is calling that as sammoha. So he says anger is triggering a chemical storm and it gives rise to this sammoha where we lose the ability to distinguish between right, wrong, friend, foe, permanent, temporary. Well, viveka goes away. Why? Because there is so much fog, there is so much dust that you have created because of that explosion that you cannot see clearly. The biggest danger, you know, what is the biggest danger of becoming deluded? Because anytime we enter the territory of delusion, we cannot even realize that we are deluded. You know, it is like a fool will never realize that he is being foolish. That is the definition of a fool, right? If he realizes he is being foolish, then he is already wise. So that is the problem with delusion. It is a vicious cycle because from that point onwards, there is only downward spiral. After delusion, now what happens? Stage 6, memory loss. Because the explosion is there, so much dust is there, so much fog is there, you cannot think clearly. And in all of that, now there is impact to your memory. That is what he calls as Smriti Bhramsa. This is not the kind of forgetting where, Krishna is not talking about, I forgot where I kept my car keys. It is not that kind of forgetting Krishna is talking about. It is more like a moral amnesia. Because we forget our values. We forget the lessons that our teachers have taught us. Like sometimes we forget the consequences. We have already faced consequences for some past actions, but we forget even that. And we go on that spiral of repeating similar actions. Isn't that right? So Smriti in the deepest sense is not just memory, it is a collective wisdom of all our experiences. So the person forgets who they are, they forget what they value, they forget what they have learned. Just like an alcoholic, they forget the pain of hangover they had just 2 days ago. When they are really craving for the next drink, they already have forgotten how they were impacted by the previous hangover. After this, what happens? Stage 7, the death of reason, buddhi nasha, where that is what Krishna says, loss of intellect. Because now the memory is gone. When the memory is gone, the viveka collapses. There is viveka. When you say discrimination or discernment, what it is about knowing what is right, what is wrong, and that depends on what you have learnt already. And what you have learnt already depends on your memory. But now the memory is destroyed, which means your viveka is gone. Just like when the brake is gone, the vehicle is going to end in a crash. That is the 8th stage, final stage. Final stage is crash, destruction, pranashyati. The person perishes. The action is taken, the harsh word is spoken, the violence is committed. Krishna is warning us. He's saying the spiritual progress of a lifetime can be destroyed in just a moment of uncontrolled impulse. The person falls from their spiritual standing and the person becomes totally lost. The person has lost their humanity, they have lost their dignity, they have lost their capacity for growth. They have become a slave to forces that they don't even recognize as their enemies anymore. They have lost that sense of discrimination so much that they are getting destroyed and they don't even realize. So the critical insight is early intervention. So here is where Krishna is. So Krishna is not talking about doom and gloom. Krishna is saying, I'm explaining to you exactly what the mechanism is, so that now you will be open to my teachings on how to prevent this from happening. So his teaching becomes very practical, supremely practical. He's making it very clear that now one of you can tell me, we just spoke about 8 stages, and the 8th stage was pranashyati. Now, which of this stage do you think is easiest to avoid? You're all thinking, okay. Someji, you are saying something?
Yeah, I think it's stage 1 because maybe contemplation is the same as having expectations, right? And we all know, like, having expectations also, like, it just distracts us towards having an expectations towards the fruit rather than focusing and being mindful upon
Very
on our
nice.
actions and on our controllables.
Very nice. Very nice. Actually, he gave the perfect answer. The perfect answer is the easiest point of intervention is the earliest point, the earliest stage. And the earliest stage is contemplation. That is the easiest because once the cycle starts, then it becomes difficult to escape. It is like there is a, what do you call that? Has anybody seen, there are this whirlpool को क्या बोलते हैं हिंदी में? I don't know what they call it. Bhavra bolte क्या? I don't know what they call it in Hindi, but it's a whirlpool, like, you see, and you know that if somebody jumps into that whirlpool, it is extremely hard to escape. They are going to go down. But what is the easiest way to avoid a whirlpool? Don't jump at all. Na? And when do you jump? You jump when you first see it, you contemplate on it. See, so as Soumyaji very nicely said, the easiest point is the beginning, contemplation. So this is the wisdom. In the West, they say prevention is always better than cure. This is what Krishna is telling us. He's telling us that here are the 8 stages, and the best thing is avoid the first stage. And what is the easiest way? Now you can understand why Krishna speaks about Ananya Chintan and all of that. Because if you are thinking of God, then the stage 1 won't happen. Na? I'm looking at you, you are beautiful, that's okay, but my thought is still on God. So that seed, sanskara, doesn't even take birth. So appreciation, it stops at appreciation. It doesn't get to attachment. Because my mind is not contemplating on you now. My mind looked at you, it appreciated your beauty, and that's it. It didn't get into that contemplation at all because the contemplation is happening on God. Okay, that is the wisdom on why Krishna says always focus on God. Always keep your mind on God. Is it so that you can provide an ego boost to God? Is it because Krishna is going to feel good that, oh, all these people are thinking about me? Now you will understand it is not for him, it is for us. So Krishna says, if you always think of me, then you escape from stage 1. And if you escape from stage 1, definitely none of the other stages are going to follow and you will gain liberation. That is what is Jodna all about. Jodna doesn't mean you don't see or you don't touch or you don't feel. Jodna is you saw, it's okay, but instead of contemplating on that object, add the contemplation of God now to the equation. Like Ambarish Maharaj, we just saw, see but see God. Smell but smell what you're offering to God, and so on and so forth. So there is a diagram that I have created. I will share it with my notes. The people who attended the previous session, I think some of you remember. It's a very nice diagram. So that takes us to Pragma 4. Pragma 4 says, let thoughts of God and service to God replace your thoughts of sensory pleasures. Is it easy or is it hard? How many people think it's hard? I'm going to use Krishna's method now. Okay, nobody raised their hand. So nobody said it's hard means, oh, okay. One, Dharmaji, you think it's hard? Okay. I would like to hear from you. What aspect of it is hard, sir?
I think mind is still, it's like the wind. The thoughts do come.
Yes.
So we all work on it. But I'm being very honest that I have myself been trying that substitution, that whenever there is a thought like this, substitute. You don't try to think about it, that I'm not going to think about it. But I'm being honest, it is hard.
I will come to that point now. Actually, you touched upon something very, very important. I'll definitely come to that. Someji, you had something to add?
Yeah, from my perspective, Guruji, it becomes difficult because I think कि कर्म तो मुझे ही करना है ना, मतलब वो तो भगवान आके नहीं करेंगे. So how do I then keep focusing on God? I will focus more on the effort, right?
नहीं, मुझे बताओ एफर्ट मतलब क्या? मतलब आप खाना बना रहे हो, वो एफर्ट है. What makes you think that मैं गॉड के बारे में सोचते? I mean, I will speak in English. So what makes you think that you cannot cook while thinking of God?
It's sort of a distraction.
No, you are avoiding distraction. Instead of thinking who is going to eat it, what kind of praise they're going to give, or they're going to publish it on Facebook, or they're going to give you a MasterChef award, or they are the distractions. You are cooking just because you like cooking, and you're just thinking of God and saying, I'm offering my cooking to God. In fact, that is the better way to do your karma. That is nishkama karma. That is how you do nishkama karma. I think Smitaji also has something to add.
Yeah, we forget the recipe, right? Like when if you're thinking something, you'll forget it, and then I don't know, because that happens. Like I'll be thinking something, and I'll instead of throwing the skin, you'll throw the whole vegetable. So because you're lost, you're thinking something else. So that time, I sometimes God should stop me from doing that, right? It happens many times. You forget recipes, or for the cooking example, I'm just giving cooking. Sometimes driving also, I'll be listening and I just take the wrong turn because I'm not focusing on the direction. So those are the times I always feel like, why didn't he make me take the right direction? Because I'm thinking of something that we have discussed, or something that I've read in the past or book. But why does that happen? So that's when my husband's like, please focus, please be in this world, don't be in some other world. So the kids also get angry. So that's what I'm saying.
No. See, these are two things. One thing is focusing on what you are doing. That is important. And that's what Krishna has also said. So Krishna said, that is what the first part of the sloka is, karmanye vadikaraste. So you have a right to. That is what we spoke about, the word adhikara. What does adhikara mean? So you are definitely supposed to focus on the task at hand. Like Arjuna, when Arjuna was trying to shoot an arrow, he could only see the eye of the bird. That has to happen. And Krishna is not saying don't focus. None of us are saying. But is that what we are actually focusing on? No. We have 100 other thoughts. And Krishna is talking about how to avoid that. He's saying instead of those 100 different thoughts, tie it all to one thought, the thought of God. Substitute. Because it is not possible, like I'll come to that now, but it's not possible to tell your mind no thinking. So Krishna says, like that elephant, we gave a piece of wood to hold, give the name of God to your mind so that it has only one thing to focus on apart from what you are working on. That is the whole message. That's all. So there is a very beautiful story, short story. The story, there is a senior monk and a junior monk. And they are monks who have taken an oath. Many oaths. One of the oaths they have taken is they will not touch a woman. It is their school makes them take the oath. So there is this senior monk and his apprentice, the junior monk. They are walking and they come to a river and they see a very beautiful, extremely beautiful woman who is standing on the shore of the river, and she looks very disturbed and frightened. And so the senior monk is asking, "My lady, what's your problem?" And she says, "Sir, I have to cross the river, but I'm extremely scared of water. So I'm not able to get into the water. Can you help me cross the river?" And the monk, without saying anything, without thinking anything, just lifts her, crosses the river, and keeps her on the other side of the river, and he continues walking. But the junior monk is completely shocked. He's like speechless. He's like, what just happened? So he has all these thoughts in his mind, like, what just happened? But he's afraid, like how to confront. He's a senior monk, and so half an hour goes by, 1 hour goes by. Finally, this young guy, he just cannot hold it anymore. His mind is now tormenting him. So he tells the senior monk, "Sir, can I ask you a question?" He says, "Yes, my son. What is bothering you?" He says, "Did you not say that we are not supposed to touch a woman? Did we not take the oath that we are not supposed to touch a woman? So how come you carried her in your own arms?" So the old monk smiles and he says, "My son, I kept the woman down an hour ago, but looks like you are still carrying her." See, this is what Krishna is teaching. It's a beautiful lesson. The lesson is the problem is not with the sensory objects themselves. The women are not a problem on the earth. Definitely. That's not what Krishna is saying or what anybody is saying. The problem is we contemplating on that. That is the problem. That is why we say substitute. Avoid that contemplation. Because with contemplation, you enter the chakra view. You enter that whirlpool. And Krishna's message is, wahan pe, there. Be mindful, be aware. That's what the old monk is telling the young monk. I just did what had to be done, and I'm no longer even thinking about it. Your mind is still. So where the problem is, that is a very beautiful lesson for all of us. Now, the other part is the illusion of separation. This is what I was going to come to, Sharmaji. First of all, we need to understand a very key point. Some of you may remember, maybe you take down the number and later on revise. Shloka 2.28 to 2.30, we spoke on this matter, where Krishna will say, or where Krishna has explained that attachment and aversion, they are two sides of the same coin, and we have to avoid both. So liking and disliking, they are two sides of the same coin. Aversion is pretty much negative attachment. So we come to this illusion of suppression. Why we cannot not think of something? It doesn't work. Because if we try to force ourselves to not think about something, it will have the same effect as thinking about that thing. See, now there is this another short story. There was this man who traveled all the way to Himalayas because he wanted a secret mantra that will help him evolve spiritually and maybe get liberation. So he tracks down a particular Swamiji in the Himalayas and he tells him, "Swamiji, you have to give me that secret mantra." The Swamiji is very kind. He's trying to explain. He's saying that, Arey Baba, I don't have any such secret mantra, but this man just won't listen. He has to have that secret mantra. He was very adamant. So finally the Swamiji says, okay, I will give you the mantra, but before I give you a mantra, you have to do something. The man is like, Swamiji, I will do anything. The Swamiji says, okay. He says, pick up that fruit. So the man picks up the fruit which is lying under a tree. He says, now take the fruit with you, sit under the tree and meditate for at least 1 hour. The man says, what's the big deal? He says, the big deal is, in that 1 hour, you should not think about this fruit. The man says, doesn't seem like a big deal. So he just goes, immediately sits down and he starts meditating and he starts telling his mind, don't think about the fruit. Don't think about the fruit. Don't think about the fruit. And guess what happens? All he can think about now is the fruit. Slowly, the color of the fruit fills his mind. The smell of the fruit fills his mind. Eventually, he even starts tasting the fruit in his mind. No, he realizes that he completely failed. So then he goes to the Swamiji and he says, Swamiji, please forgive me. I completely failed in the task. So I guess I don't deserve that secret mantra from you. So he's very sad. But of course, the Swamiji was very touched by his honesty, because what happened was inside his mind. Nobody can see from outside what is happening inside his mind, but he was still very honest to acknowledge, just like Sharmaji was acknowledging honestly. He honestly at least acknowledged that I couldn't fulfill that task, So the Swamiji was very touched by the honesty, and then he gives the wisdom to this man. He says, the real secret is that there is no secret mantra required for you to attain God's grace. All you need is sincerity, purity, humility, and consistency. He says, from now on, whenever you catch your mind being occupied by any material or sensory objects, replace with the thought of God. What is key? What is the key thing he says? Catch. Deepaji, do you remember the first Pragma? Pragma 1?
Don't give in to your inner saboteur.
And how do we not give in to our saboteur?
By replacing it with thoughts of God.
Before replacing, what we have to do? You have to catch it.
Catch it back. Okay.
Isn't it?
Right.
You have to first catch it. And that is the key. That is what Swamiji also said. The intervention has to happen as early as possible. The earliest is contemplation. But then for that, we have to be mindful. And that is the previous teaching of Krishna. Live life mindfully. If you are mindful, you will be able to catch that, right now my mind is trying to contemplate on something. Catch it. As soon as you catch it, do the substitution. Tell your mind, Arey Baba, this is Nashwar, this is Asat, this is temporary. Why don't you just contemplate on that which is Sat? That's all. But it has to be done early. You cannot do it once you are in lust. You cannot do it once you are angry, because that's too late. You are already in the whirlpool. This is the whole message here. So how do we become free? So Krishna says, when the mind is free from both attachment and aversion, now does it make sense? Why we should not have attachment also, and why we should not have aversion also? Because that man under the tree was trying to practice aversion to the fruit. No fruit, no fruit, no fruit. But it had the same effect as attachment, because at the end of the day, the mind was full of fruit. That is the very key, beautiful message here. And Krishna is saying the same thing, that if you can avoid both attachment and aversion, then you will be able to focus on God. And if you focus on God like this, you are going to reach that bliss. Again, we are talking about Jodna, not Chodna. Like, see, many of us, not many of us, I hope all of us started as kids, right? We were not born as 50-year-olds or 40-year-olds. We all started our journey. We were children at some point. And when we were children, we had different sets of likes. Like some of us liked those wooden toys, or we liked some matchboxes, or isn't it? All of us had those. But today, hopefully, we are not still attached to that. Why? Because we have replaced. When we become a little older, initially we have attachment to a tricycle. We become a little older, we are attached to a bicycle. We become a little older, we are attached to a bike. A little older, we are attached to a car, and then a bigger car, then a faster car, isn't it? But that is pretty much Jodna. So it is not that somebody came and told you, you have to now not think of the tricycle. It is just that you found something else to think of. That replaced the previous attachment. Exactly like that, Krishna is saying, instead of all this circus, just think of me. Anytime you catch yourself contemplating on anything asat. Isn't that very powerful? Isn't that very beautiful? So the founder of Ashtanga Yoga, Patanjali, he is also emphasizing the importance of controlling the mind. So he says, Yogas Chitta Vritti Nirodha, which means yoga is controlling of the fluctuations of the mind. And Sri Krishna is saying the same thing. The only difference is Krishna is saying that control cannot be by force. That control cannot be through violence. That control has to be through such harmonious substitution. Very powerful, very beautiful. And in future chapters, Krishna will explain another technique which is called as tying your senses to the yoke of God consciousness. Some of you remember it already. Okay. So now we come to a 3-step structure to get freedom. So we have already discussed it. Now I'm going to summarize that. Because whatever Krishna has taught is not like some abstract philosophy, right? It is practical psychology. So there is a 3-step structure that we can all use in our day-to-day lives. Step 1 is notice, be aware, be mindful. That is the first step. So Deepaji, this is what I was talking about. Catch the saboteur. Like my mind is contemplating on something. Are you aware of that? Catch it. The moment we become aware, then we are no longer under the control of the mind. That is the whole magic. Magic is awareness. Like every thief is afraid of being caught. When does a thief become a bigger thief and a dangerous thief? When he keeps escaping. Every time he escapes, he thinks now he can commit a bigger robbery, right? And his act only keeps getting worse and worse. What is required is somebody has to catch him. And if people keep on catching him, eventually he will hopefully stop on that path of being a robber, right? Just like that. We have to be mindful, catch. When we catch, what happens? You create a space. You create a space between the subject and the object. You create a space between the observer and the observed. And that space is what gives you that safety, that buffer. What is step 2? You are aware. And step 2, interrupt. Interrupt means what? Now you become aware that I am contemplating on something. Now first take a deep breath. Relax. And tell your mind, we are okay, we are safe, we are good. It's okay. I caught you doing something, but it's okay. Now I'm going to give you something else. So that is the second step. You interrupt. And the third step, replacement. Actually give it something. Sacred focus. Give it a name. Or give it a form. You like Krishna in some form. Give it the form. Or give it a thought. Give it a thought of being grateful. Are you not grateful? Are we not grateful for so many things today? Let the mind contemplate on that gratefulness. So that replacement is the stage 3. So in 2.64, Krishna says, but one who controls the mind and is free from attachment and aversion, even while using the objects of the senses, they attain the grace of God. Very important, very powerful. So Krishna is not saying avoid all sensory object. Krishna's path is not the path of an ascetic. Krishna's path is not the path of you have to wear a langot and run away to a mountain or a cave. Krishna's path is be in the life, do well in life, succeed in life. Just don't let it disturb you. That is the whole message here. The Krishna is giving a very beautiful word in 2.64, that is prasada. Prasada means grace, clarity, tranquility. And the idea is, in Vedanta, you will see this idea that raga, which means attachment, and dvesha, which means aversion, they are both like chains. They are both chains that bind us. And raga is binding us one way and dvesha is binding us on the other way. So we have to be free from both. And in 2.65 and 2.66, Krishna is teaching us how to end all sorrow and how to reach that ultimate bliss and happiness. So we call it the architecture of peace. So he's saying by divine grace comes the tranquility in which all sorrow ends. And the intellect of such a person will soon become firmly established in God. And then he goes on to say that, however, an individual who lacks discipline, an individual who has not mastered their mind or senses, they cannot, focus on God. And if they cannot have such a focus, then they will never be peaceful. And if they are not peaceful, they can never feel happiness. I would really request you to look at these verses one more time, tomorrow, day after tomorrow, whenever you get time, because it's very scientific, very methodical, very practical. See, the beautiful message is prasade sarva dukkhanam hanir. In grace, all sorrows cease. Not some sorrow, not most sorrow, but sarva dukkhanam. So he's saying when you have such grace, when you follow these teachings, sarva dukkhanam, all sorrows will cease. Why will sorrow cease? Not is it because your external circumstances have somehow changed magically? No. It is because your internal relationship to that circumstances has changed. This is what we spoke about, two arrows. When you say, I am now blissful, doesn't mean the first arrow has stopped coming. When you say I am blissful means you have learned to manage the second arrow. And that is the teaching here. That's what Krishna is very beautifully teaching. Then he says, that is why for such a person, the miseries of the material world no longer exist. So for you, the miseries don't exist. Very beautiful. Very, very beautiful. See, the most beautiful aspect of all this teaching is what Krishna is saying in these final shlokas. He's saying, prasanna chetaso hyasu buddhi paryavatishtate. For the serene mind, intelligence quickly becomes established. See, paryavatishtate means it is like something like finding the proper place. Like, for example, a bird finding its nest. He's saying when the mind is no longer agitated, the intellect will find its right place. So, Krishna is saying that that peace, that bliss is yours already. That is your natural state. You are not forcing yourself to become something. He's saying that is your natural state. And if you just follow these teachings, you will automatically find that natural state. And that natural state is that of bliss, ananda. Isn't it empowering? So Krishna is now, what he's saying, without control, ayukta, there is no focus possible. And without focus, you cannot have any depth. Bhavana. Without depth, there cannot be any peace, shanti, and without peace, there cannot be any happiness. The key to notice here is, if you see the entire teaching here, is there anywhere Krishna said that if you do something wrong, I will punish you and I will make you miserable? Krishna has given us the secret. He has said that we make ourselves miserable. We have all the skills that is required to make ourselves miserable. And he's explaining that whole science here. So we are, at the end of the day, we are completely empowered. And Krishna is just saying, my dear, You have the power. I'm just teaching you how to use that power in the right way. So real happiness is not, it can never be achieved through the sense gratification. And that is why we say don't indulge. It is not a question of morality. It is a question of psychology. So Krishna is saying, as long as you think your happiness depends on your sense fulfillment, sense gratification, you are only going in the wrong direction, because we just saw what is going to happen if you go in that direction. And why does that happen? What is that? At the core, what is happening? It is a sense of separation. Because we have a sense of separation, we are running behind things which are not true. Correct? And that is what Anandamayi Ma very profoundly said. She said, Jahan do hai, wahi dukkha hai. Very beautiful. What that means is, only when there is a feeling of separation, there is pain. There cannot be any unhappiness or pain if there is no separation. If you don't feel any separation from God, is that not what we have been talking so far? Thinking of God, contemplating on God. When we will not do that, only when we feel a separation, only when we don't feel that unity. So that is the eternal return. Now we will come back to Arjuna, because we have used Arjuna to learn so many lessons. So now Arjuna's eyes have changed, because previously his eyes were looking like a trapped animal, confused. But now his eyes begin shining because he realizes that now he's beginning to understand. He's now actually beginning to understand the whole science. So these 6 verses, they are like, I would say, a science of human bondage and liberation, how Krishna has packed it into these 6 slokas. And they teach us that heaven and hell, they are not somewhere far, but they are states of consciousness. They are right within us. We have the power to create either a heaven for us or hell for us, our own choices. And then we spoke about the 3 simple steps: notice, interrupt, replace. It can't get any easier than that. So freedom, as we said, is not like for only a select chosen few. Freedom is our natural state. That's what Krishna said. It is our natural state. That bliss, that freedom, that liberated state is our natural state. So the gate is always open. The divine is always waiting. Let us just enter and let us be free. So Hare Krishna. I think I know I took a little longer today, and hopefully, but it was worth the time. So now I can stop talking. And if anybody had any further questions or doubts, please feel free. I think Shalmali ji had a question.
Yes, Guruji. I wanted to ask Guruji that the one point you mentioned that going on the time to a for a job, it's not correct. But Guruji, it's our we have to go on the job on time, right?
No. I did not say that going on time is not correct. What I actually said is that becomes our attachment now. Correct. Now, and that attachment, when it gets interrupted, then we get angry. So I was just talking about the mechanism. So the message is not don't be anywhere on time. The message is no, be mindful. Now you want to still be on time, but now when somebody cuts you on the road, don't give in to anger. What's the message? The message is understand the signs of why you got angry, then use the 3-step process. Be mindful, interrupt, replace. Replace that anger with something positive. Say maybe that guy wants to go to the bathroom, or maybe that guy is in a big rush. Maybe that guy has an emergency. Don't let it disturb you. So that should be the focus of that example. Hope that's clear now, Shalmali ji.
But sir, the Guruji, but I want to ask, yeah, but how it will come? It won't come, na? Because it is not only one thing. Like when you are very angry that time, mindfulness will come, but it not for every situation it will come.
No. You are actually flipping the whole narrative. You are saying when I'm angry, how can I be mindful. I'm saying if you are mindful, you will not become angry. You got angry because you were not mindful. That is the message. Okay. And you are right. Once you become angry, then it is very difficult. Then up you can. That is why Somaji was telling us that the point where you can prevent is the earliest point. So be mindful there, and hopefully you will not get angry there.
Okay.
Thank you. Good question.
Thank you.
Yes. Yes, Somaji, you had something to add?
Yeah, Guruji, I think I have misunderstood something. So when we were discussing about the concept of illusion of separation, I thought that because all of everything we have tied up in our thoughts to Krishna, that's why we are able to focus and be mindful of whatever we are doing. And if that understanding is correct, then in the 3 steps to freedom, shouldn't notice be actually a step 3 and it comes automatically, like it's a result, and we can just focus on or be mindful to interrupt and then substitute or replace?
I'm not sure I exactly get your question, but the point is you say that when I'm thinking of Krishna, then I'm able to just focus on my work. But how did that happen? How did you land up thinking of Krishna? Because your mind wants to always think something. How did you manage to make sure that that something is always Krishna? That is notice, the first stage. Because even now you are talking to me, but there are 10 things going in your mind. Your son is next to you. Now you are a little annoyed, or you are a little worried or anxious or whatever. So many things are going on, right? So that is the notice part. So that always has to come first, because until you become a complete Sthita Pragya, the mind is a very turbulent, very wild horse. you know? No, it's in my opinion, this is probably one of the most profound set of teachings that if we use it the right way, that can transform our lives, and that can transform our equation with the world. So my blessings and best wishes. May you all internalize these lessons, and may you all go towards your natural state of ananda and freedom. Okay, Hare Krishna. See you all in the next session. If everything goes well, no interruptions, then hopefully next session we can conclude the glorious second chapter. Okay, I'll be mindful of your time now. I've already taken too much of your time. I'm grateful and thankful to all of you for supporting and being with us. See you all in the next session. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. No, in fact, he muted you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Guruji.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Hare Krishna, Guruji.